Hey everyone, you're listening to InfoQuench with Jeff.
And Amy. We're chatting about how to get the most out of life.
And covering a ton of interesting topics.
So there's sure to be something.
For just about everyone. Let's get to it. Hey everybody, and welcome to InfoQuench. I'm your host, Jeff.
And I'm Amy. In this episode, we're going to be talking about how to have more charisma.
More charisma. What does that mean? Like, some people like you more? Charisma is your own personal likability, right? That filters out to other people.
It's that it factor. And the episode quote is, charisma is the fragrance of the soul. So that is your definition, Jeff. The fragrance of the soul.
That makes sense, actually.
So that quote is by Toba Beta.
Toba Beta. Never heard of this person. Oh, okay. Author.
Yes. Authors often do write quotes. And
So,
this one did.
Is this episode of InfoQuench how to recognize your charisma, how to improve it, how to get it?
It's actually exactly as the title is said, how to have more charisma.
Oh, how to have more. I missed the title of the podcast.
Well, that's okay. Maybe our listeners did too, so it's worth repeating.
Okay. So you're assuming that people already have charisma. What if you have none?
Well, then I don't know. Then you'll have to start from scratch and go to an episode that says how to get any charisma.
Oh, that makes sense. We should do that next
How to be
podcast.
less dull.
Yep.
So I just want to reference at the outset of this episode, I gathered content from Joshua Becker. He does Being Minimalist, which is a great blog. Also a couple of websites, Barking Up the Wrong Tree website and the Josh Harbinger Show. I used both of those to get the content together for this, and we are going to be so charismatic, Jeff. It's going to be tremendous.
We're going to ooze charisma.
Oh, you didn't even pick up on my tremendous word?
Tremendous. Oh, the Trump word.
Given all the January 6th hearings that are taking place, I thought that
would you say that somebody as horrible as Mr. Donald Trump has charisma?
I'd have to say he does.
I'd say he does to his followers.
Well, I mean, that's how you have followers,
To
right?
his detractors, though, his charisma is like a stink potion.
So if you try to think about somebody who is like the most boring person that you've ever met.
Okay.
And then try to think about what made them so dull.
Right.
And a lot of times what makes people dull is that they hog the limelight. They only want to talk about themselves. And that can be a very mind-numbing experience when you're engaging with somebody whose favorite topic is themselves. I think it's a normal human trait to like to talk about yourself, but it's a balance. It's a balance, and if you're around other people and everyone's just talking about themselves, they're not even talking to each other. They're just
that is
all off having
correct.
their own conversations about how wonderful they are. So I'm going to talk about a few aspects of charisma. One is around voice. There was actually research that was done on U.S. presidential candidates, and they found that in looking at 8 elections between 1960 and 2000, the candidate with the lower voice won the popular vote.
The lower voice. That's really interesting.
Right. So that idea that it's just something that draws people in to have a more, low, like your radio voice, Jeff.
Yes.
Very charismatic.
My radio voice. But
Barry White.
Yeah, Barry White is a good example too. But it's interesting though because the presidential election between Trump and Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She won more, votes than Trump, and she probably doesn't have the lower voice, which is interesting so there's exceptions to the rule.
And I think that they can usually find those types of patterns in any of those studies they could have gathered.
Absolutely.
Looked at different sections of elections or different pieces. So yeah, we'll just discard that. But it's an interesting thought.
No, it's great.
But let's talk about aspects of voice. And one way that you can improve how you speak is just to speak more slowly.
I know, but don't you find though that people sometimes they anticipate what you're going to say and then they fill in words when you speak too slowly? That's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine when people do that. Because I sometimes do like to take my time saying what I want to say, but sometimes it's not the speed that someone else is expecting when you're speaking with them.
I love how
That rarely
solid-
happens with you.
I know. I love how solid the eye contact was on that one because I am so guilty of finishing your sentences and other people's sentences because I think fast, I talk fast.
But is it
and I
because
want other
I'm too
people to-
slow in my approach to what I'm trying to say?
I think
It
I'm just an
probably is.
efficient person and I want people to get their words out. And
Yeah.
maybe sometimes it's like I'm trying to convey that I understand what you're saying. So by finishing your sentence, I'm like, okay, I just want to let you know I'm on the same wavelength as you are. So let me finish your sentence and let you know I'm, picking
Yes,
up what you're
that's
laying
right.
down. I smell what you're cooking. And
It's an affirmative understanding that happens between two people when you finish the sentences and stuff.
That's right. That's the way I like to think about it.
Yeah.
But speaking slowly, if you're just engaged in conversation rather than going at hyperspeed, which I'm known to do, the idea is to visualize a contrast between like a nervous, squeaky teenager speaking at that high speed versus the slow, emphatic tone of a judge delivering a verdict or a president giving a speech, and how that comes across. The idea also of pausing, speaking slowly does involve pausing, but people broadcast confidence when they pause. So if they pause for a second or two between sentences, it allows people to absorb what they're saying, and it also comes across as that the fact that they're confident in their power. They trust that people won't interrupt. They trust that people are interested enough in what they're saying that despite the fact that they speak slowly and take a pause, that people won't be tempted to interrupt. Because
That's really interesting point because I've noticed that politicians, when they're delivering information that they don't want to, like like if they're admitting guilt to something or whatever, they try to be as boring and as, unassuming as possible, hoping that people just like tune out to what they're saying. You know what I mean? Even though they're saying something very important, but they're doing it in a boring fashion.
Right, so maybe they hope that soundbite won't be picked up as readily because it is boring.
That's right.
So dropping intonation is another way that people can convey more confidence and charisma. So what I mean by that is, when you ask a question, you raise the intonation at the end of the sentence, right? What were you up to today? That probably
Yeah, that emotes interest,
right?
For sure.
But if you say something like, how a voice rises at the end of a question, versus if I said, how the voice rises at the end of a question, it's almost the saying, one is actually asking for somebody to confirm.
Yes,
that
or
they-
continue the conversation.
Or to confirm what you've said is correct, whereas
Yeah.
the second one is making more of a statement, and it is
I
said
keep
with more confidence.
going back to politicians, but politicians do that all the time. They they'll want to say something to, like, if they're doing if they're talking to prospective voters and stuff, they will phrase their comments and questioning in a certain way that it is like, what's it called when you don't want your question answered?
Rhetorical?
Rhetorical. It's rhetorical, but they don't speak it in a rhetorical way. Do you know what I mean? Their words are rhetorical, but the inflection in which they speak it is not rhetorical. They want an answer back from their voters. I don't know if I'm making any sense here, but
I think you are. Sort of. Maybe.
I think you are.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm understanding it completely.
It's okay. My brain is a very strange place.
It is, and it's a wonderfully colorful, lovely place.
Colorblind place.
Colorblind place? I don't want to freak you out, Jeff.
I can't even see
But my
colors.
shirt is red.
Oh, I know it is.
If you don't know what we're talking about, you'll have to check out the last episode on Surrounded by Idiots. And
Yes.
You'll understand.
And I'm not the idiot, just so you know.
No. And I'm not surrounded by Jeffs. There is only one Jeff. If you want to sound super confident, you can even lower your intonation mid-sentence. I actually tried to do it that time, but I don't think I did.
I'll try it again.
If you want to sound super confident, you can actually lower your intonation mid-sentence.
But didn't you constantly lower your intonation that whole sentence?
Well, if I would have just just going lower.
You would have ended up sounding like
All right, let's go back to other things that you can do is just check your breathing. Breathing deeply, not having a shallow breath, which can make you seem breathless and anxious. Breathing deeply can convey more warmth and confidence. And also smiling. When you smile, it really tells listeners, that you're passionate about what you're talking about, and it does come across even on the phone. People can hear a smile in your voice.
Yeah. All of this merges really well with the idea of public speaking, right? Of any kind. If you're doing some kind of a speech in front of people, you watch your intonation, you regulate your breathing, you just try to get your ideas across in a very, smooth way.
Well, yeah. I mean, everybody wants to watch a public speaker with charisma. I think that's what keeps people engaged.
Exactly. I mean, exactly. Otherwise, people are, falling asleep and tuning out.
You seemed almost surprised by that last comment I made.
What?
Like you were surprised that it was such a wonderful comment. You were like, exactly.
Yeah.
I can't believe you said that.
My intonation went up.
So to be interesting, be interested. So one of the most important things you can do to be an interesting person is to be interested in the people around you. And Dale Carnegie has a lot to say about this. He is the famous author of How to Win Friends and Influence People. If you haven't read that book, you don't even have to. You can check out our episodes 29 and 30.
29, and we did a two-parter.
We did a two-parter because he has so much great content. But he says, famously, we can make more friends in 2 months by becoming interested in other people than you can make in 2 years by trying to get other people interested in you.
Yeah.
And humans are naturally self-centered. So, before we want to care about somebody else, we want to feel that they care about us. So It doesn't mean that we never talk about ourselves or share our own stories or what we're interested in. It just means that first and foremost, we need to be genuinely interested in others, and then they'll likely be more interested in us.
Absolutely. When you first meet somebody, what are some of the questions that you can ask them to let them know that you're automatically interested in them as people? Like when you meet somebody and you don't know them, you could ask them, okay, well where were you from? Where were you brought up? Can you tell me that? Or what do you do for a living? Or just things like that, right?
Right. Well, and I'd even go a step further to say that you should maybe deviate away from the standard questions that are the conversation starters and maybe say,
when was the last time you rode a horse? That kind of thing. Like when was, really, really interesting things.
Well, the horse one is a good one. I won't say that the horse question's not a great one, but
don't patronize me. The horse one's a great one. Like you would really ask that to somebody. You're hilarious.
You walk into a dinner party and you just have a pocket with slips of paper.
Yeah.
And you haul them out with these random questions. When was the last time you rode a horse?
Didn't we go to a place didn't we meet some people that did that with us before at a bar? They just kind of asked us these random questions. I remember this from when we were dating then.
Well,
Anyway.
I'm having a recollection of it too, and I don't know, maybe we just shared a dream, or maybe
we just talked about how cool it would be if it happened, and then now we think it happened.
Or maybe we were at a bar and very intoxicated at the time.
We've been together so long we think it happened, but it didn't.
But that would be cool. I think we should just do that. We should have slips of paper in our pocket with random weird questions and just bring them up to strangers.
What was your first memory? Those kinds of things, really deep things.
It's looking a little deeper, asking open-ended questions, not how old are you?
Yeah.
And also listen to the answer so that you can have a meaningful response. Give them your undivided attention, and that will be noticed. And don't interrupt people when they're speaking. Definitely don't finish their sentences.
Why? Sorry.
I knew you were going to do that. I knew you were going to do it. I tried to talk really fast so you wouldn't do it.
I know. Sorry, go ahead. I interrupted you.
But the whole idea of active listening too, right? Focus on the person, let them know that you are, sometimes it's a nodding up and down, just maintaining eye contact.
You really want to be affirmative too with what the other person is saying when you first meet them. So for example, if you say, well, what do you do for a living? And they say, oh, I'm a dentist. You don't want to go, oh, a dentist. Wow. You want to be like, oh, you're a dentist. That's really interesting. How do you like digging in people's teeth? Like that kind of thing, you know?
Or, wow, you're a dentist? That's really interesting. Your teeth are awful.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
You must be really great with a drill. Wow. And just, yeah.
I'm never going to as a dentist.
It's kind of a non-starter in a way, but...
So asking good questions is important, but also being curious about what the answer is. Ask things that you actually want to know the answer. When's the last time you rode a horse? Maybe you are a horse enthusiast, Jeff, and you need to know that answer from everybody you meet.
Yeah, maybe you're really excited to answer that question. Oh my goodness, no one's ever asked me when was the last time I rode a horse. Let me just tell you. But you're my best friend now.
Asking somebody, what are you most excited about right now, is a very open-ended question that could generate myriad of responses and be really quite a conversation starter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Another way you can really connect with somebody and have them be interested in you is to find common ground. I often go to, TV show. What are you watching on TV? Or classic St. John. We proudly broadcast InfoQuencho to St. John, New Brunswick.
Yes.
And a classic St. John or any small town or smaller city question will be, do you know so-and-so? It's sort of that within the first 5 minutes, let's find out who our mutual connection is. And you can usually do it.
You can usually find somebody.
Even in a large city, you will find a connection. They say 6 degrees of separation, but I usually find it's less than 1 degree.
Sometimes it's a bit
like,
of a detective novel, right? To try and figure it all out. And that's kind of the fun part. Oh, well, if you don't know that person, do you know this person?
How do you know that person? Other questions that you could ask that might go a little deeper are, why is that important to you? Or what's the hardest thing about that? Someone tells you what they do for a living. What's the hardest thing about your job? Or what do you enjoy most about it? You can ask people how you can help. If they're talking about a project or initiative that they're involved in, you can try to
you could network.
Offer your help. But be ready to help. Don't just say, how can I help? Thanks for letting me know how I could help. Now I'm going to not help and go do my own thing.
That's right. I'm going to stay home and eat ice cream, not meet anybody, and have no charisma.
Be inclusive. That's another important piece about being charismatic. And it's just the idea that nobody likes to feel left out. So when you do show up at an event, walk into a room, and you see somebody who's maybe not engaging with everybody else, strike up a conversation, bring them into a circle with another group, and just... that will be remembered. It'll be remembered by that person, but also people witnessing will see that you do take notice.
Yeah, it's a good point. Never really thought of that one.
Tell good stories. And if you want to know how to tell a good story, you can listen to episode 70.
Yes.
If you're nervous about telling a story, you can try preparing some stories in your head ahead of time. A lot of times people have their own go-to stories that they'll use, and sometimes they'll tell it to the same people over and over again. I'm guilty of that. I'll get deja vu, and then I'll realize it's not deja vu. It was actually, I just told you this story like 2 days ago. It wasn't deja vu at all. It was just a redo.
I'm just repeating myself.
I'm just repeating myself. But the most entertaining stories are usually ones about human behavior, ones that maybe are embarrassing to us, ones that show our vulnerability. That really does keep people interested.
Oh, yeah.
Keep it brief, keep it upbeat. Don't monopolize the conversation.
That happens a lot.
It does.
I try never to do that. I try to listen more than anything else.
Do you? I try to talk more than anything else. That's why we're such a great match.
Yeah, I try to just listen and learn something. And about the person or whatever, but I don't really like to commandeer the conversation. Unlike right now, I like to commandeer the conversation. I'm not actually going to stop.
Waiting for the pause.
I'm going to talk to the rest for the rest of the InfoQuench podcast. No, I'll stop now.
This is why I hate going to live music, because I like to talk to people, and live music. Particularly when it's a small venue, I feel like you just have to sit there and look at them and listen. It's the same with movies. And I'm like, I just want to talk. I just want to talk to people. What do you think about this scene? What do you think about that?
I can't stand it when people talk at concerts when you're there to listen to the music.
That's just why I just don't go to the concerts.
Yeah, I know. What was a concert, though?
Bahamas.
Bahamas, yeah. You enjoyed that, didn't you?
Well, I did until I came home with COVID.
Is that where you got it?
I think so.
Oh, you never really know.
You never really know. It's all around us.
He got it there, too.
He did, too, but I wasn't doing anything with him.
Anyway.
He was way up on stage. I was not even in a good seat.
Were you kissing Bahamas?
Is he one guy? I thought there was a few people on stage.
Well, he's
Did
Bahamas.
I have to kiss them all?
Oh, jeez.
I
You're
don't know
commandeering the conversation with the band?
I don't know which one gave me COVID, or maybe I gave it to all of them. All right. Visualize. Those who are
Picture it.
Picture it, Sicily.
Sicily, yeah. You love that show.
Those who are charismatic do use a lot of imagery. And if you do listen to some of the world's greatest speeches, throughout history, they use imagery to capture people's attention. And it works. Nothing like painting a picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words. All those things. Do the unexpected. Don't be afraid to be the real you. That's how people remember you if you're authentic. And if you are passionate or you are expressive and you're okay with putting your flaws on display, it makes people comfortable to be around you and be comfortable in being themselves around you, which is even more important.
It lets them know that they can make mistakes as well.
Right.
I mean, everybody's making mistakes.
We're going to judge them for their mistakes.
We're going to see who has the best mistake. And we will give out a ribbon for it. Best mistake goes to not me and not you.
It's important to voice your opinion, to be charismatic too, even if it's different. It's okay for people to disagree.
Dissenting views are welcome.
Yeah, have healthy debate. It keeps things interesting. As long as people are, not being hostile or disrespectful of one another, it makes great conversation.
You know what's interesting is I know people, and we know the same people, that they love like a really healthy, heated debate, and I can't stand that. I don't know why. I don't like arguing. You can argue and keep it non-personal, but usually
you don't like conflict.
Well, I don't really like conflict, no. But I mean, you don't need to like conflict in order to have a healthy, heated debate or argument about something, right? You may think one way and someone else thinks completely opposite, but you can still agree to disagree.
But it is conflict, but it's healthy conflict.
Yeah.
I think conflict often has a negative connotation, but healthy debate is a healthy conflict.
I just don't know.
Conflicting opinions.
I mean, that automatically makes me feel uncomfortable for some reason. I don't know why.
Because you're green.
Yeah, I guess I'm green. That's right.
Surrounded by idiots. Last episode, Jeff's a greenie.
That's right.
Read the room. People who are charismatic walk in and they read the room. If you ever notice somebody who's powerful or influential, they'll sort of take a few steps in and they'll look around. Mm-hmm. They'll take time to listen, see who's around, understand the audience, and then they'll come in and engage. And just having that understanding.
Then they'll grab the mic and start doing their open mic thing. Spotlights on them.
They'll do a little dance.
There are people like that, though, that are just kind of like, hey, this is my time to shine with all these people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's the same people who love karaoke, right? Mm-hmm. They love the spotlight.
They do love karaoke. They just love
singing, but, sometimes they just like the spotlight, too. Body language is an important piece of being engaging and welcoming with people, not crossing your arms. Look at social cues and, try to be accommodating to other people. Don't, again, monopolize a conversation. Talk about things that are current. Be, up to date on what's happening in the news and politics. And that way you are able to step into just about any conversation and engage and provide an educated opinion or contribute in some way.
I have a question for you. When you go to a party and you know everybody there, and then somebody shows up that you don't know, what is your first thought? Is your first thought like, oh crap, there's someone here that I don't know and I'm going to have to meet them and I just don't know what to say to them? Or is it, oh hey, cool, a really great opportunity to meet somebody new. I know exactly what to say to them when I see them. Or are you...
My first thought is, do I know that person? They look familiar, or maybe they don't. If they do I know their name?
How do I know them?
How do I know them? This is where I'm at.
Really?
I would like to say in my life, but I've never been good with names or faces, and I often have to meet people several times in order to register.
It's odd. In that situation, I always get slightly anxious at first when I don't know somebody and I know I'm going to have to meet them, and I don't know why, but I've always been that way, and I just don't know why that is the case. Like, is it just like a... But I guess it would probably be slight social anxiety.
Yeah. Well, see, I think I'm desensitized because I've worked in so many careers that require me to meet new people every single day. I mean, when
Right.
I did worked events, I would meet literally thousands of people within the course of a few days. Now, not intimately meet them, but enough to.
It's always good to meet
hello.
them right away because like halfway through the party and you've been around them all this time and you still haven't met them, you still don't really even know their name, then it's awkward to go, oh, hey, you've been here half the night, but we've we've been talking, but I still don't even really know your name.
But
So my name is.
I'll come straight out and say that though. It's
That's good. That's good. That's a good approach.
I'm at the
See, there's charisma.
part of my life where
right
I just
there.
embrace the fact that, hey, you know what? We may have met before. I'm not 100% sure. I suck at names and faces and memory. So why don't we just pretend like
I
we've never
barely
met?
have a brain. Who are you?
Are you a person? Am I talking to a cat? I don't really know.
Well, you're never going to a party again.
Be consistent when you're talking. Having a smooth pitch, avoid, going up and down too much. I mean, a little bit is interesting, but when you have a lot of variability in your tone, in your emotion, it can be off-putting. So when you think about somebody who's doing negotiations or sales pitch, they're often consistent in their emphasis, their rhythm, and they use that to convince people to come along to their way of thinking. And use your body.
Use your body.
Use your body. I did talk about body language, but nonverbal communication is really important. Even your posture, your gestures, all of those things can portray confidence. Fidgeting
Breakdancing?
can show anxiety.
Can you break dance as soon as you go to a party? And
Well,
people-
you like to try.
Yeah, I remember the last time. Remember the last time I was like, "Honey, should I break dance?" You're like, "No, do not break dance. You're too old." I'm like, "Okay, you're right."
No, I just
So
came
I
out and
didn't.
said it. I just didn't want to be your
No.
back the next day.
No,
I was looking out for your back.
You're right. I don't even know what came over me. I don't know who has these impulses to just break dance out of nowhere.
You
Like,
do.
I know, but
the last
why?
time you did, I think, was our wedding,
Yeah, I think it was,
and you were okay.
and that was
you
okay.
lived through that one, but I think that was the last one.
My backspin was still on point.
I think
so
that had to be the finale of the breakdancing of your career,
I think so
your
too.
lifetime career. That's a little depressing.
The
but
whole trick to the
was a good one.
backspin though is to like at the end to do that little move where you're like put your hand behind your head and you're like do that pose.
I
just,
know.
Just live for that.
And
Anyway,
you're great at it, so you should live for that.
yeah.
Speaking of living an interesting life can make you more charismatic. Do interesting things. If you,
Go interesting places.
yeah, what a better incentive to travel than to be able to gather more stories to tell people. And people love hearing about your vacation, not necessarily, but travel stories can be really cool. It's usually the stories where things don't go well that make the best stories.
When you travel with other people, those are the stories that last years and years and years, I find. Like when we first arrived in Nicaragua and you weren't feeling well, that story's told almost every time with our
Yes.
friends that we experienced that with.
Yeah, it was pretty horrific. Thanks
Yeah.
for making sure that water was filtered at the hotel, Jeff.
Yeah, that was my fault. Jeez, I'll never live that one down. That's okay, though. You bounced back.
Our friends have video of me arriving. We arrived at where they were staying at the Airbnb because they were there first. And they took a video to just, capture the magical moment of us discovering this residence for the first time. It was a pretty cool place to stay in San Juan del Sur in Nicaragua. And I was so sick when I came out, hopped out of that minivan, that it was a mad dash to get a glass of water. And they caught it all on video. Right up until I ran
was
upstairs
great.
to find some
We
facilities.
haven't watched that video since, though, I don't think. I don't remember.
No, I've only seen it once.
I just wanted to say, just quickly, honey, that you just did a master class of everything that we talked about. You had the intonation, you had the story,
You had the diarrhea.
you had the diarrhea, you had the puking, you had... I was going to get to that, but you really did, though. You had everything that we were talking about.
Why is it called the diarrhea? I had the constipation.
Yeah,
I
I
had
don't
the
know.
diarrhea.
You don't do the puking.
No.
It's
I
like,
guess I could have just said I had
Yeah.
diarrhea,
Yeah.
but I said the diarrhea. It makes
Yeah.
it sound worse.
Did I get sick at
I
all
had the
during
COVID.
that trip? I didn't, did I? From the water or nothing?
No, I made sure all your water I got was filtered.
Yeah, that makes sense. That would do it.
Last but not least, it's so much easier to come across as being charismatic in person. You know, trying to do, and I know that hasn't always been possible during the pandemic, but definitely meeting people in person is just more personable
Yeah.
to do it.
Good way to put it.
Personal.
Don't do it on
personable,
Zoom.
All those person things, definitely more charismatic. So hopefully you've learned a few things listening to this episode. I would say that
I certainly have.
one of the biggest tips is think about the people in your life who are charismatic and have a look. See how they interact with people. Pick out what makes them charismatic. And see
Yeah,
if
I'm going to
those
start
are-
copying them.
Yeah, and
Trying.
copy them exactly.
Yeah. Tell the same stories.
Like minutes
Exact
after they
same
finish
stories.
telling them, and
Yeah.
then yeah.
Do the same breakdancing moves. It would be amazing.
I don't think your moves could be matched.
No. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening.
Be sure to check out past episodes and subscribe to keep up with what's new.
You can find us anywhere you get your podcast, and why not leave a review?
You can also follow InfoQuench on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Till next time.